welcome to this new podcast of Data Minds, a podcast where you get to know the people behind the data science scene here in Belgium. And today I have with me Lien Michiels. She'll talk all about herself, what she's working on, and what fascinates her in this hopefully fascinating episode. Welcome, Lien.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
So first, as an introduction, can you, for the viewers who don't know you yet, can you introduce yourself in 5 minutes? Who are you? What do you do? Stuff like that.
Okay, so Lien Michiels. I currently work at a company called Vroomel, which is a startup spin-off of the University of Antwerp. And we work on recommender systems and personalized search for media companies and retailers and companies like that. I'm from here, from Leuven.
Yay! I'm not from here. I'm an immigrant here. So,
yeah.
I know. Yeah.
So,
But yeah, you're from here, right? And what do you do at Vroomel then?
well, lots of things really, but mostly I maintain two of our biggest clients, one in media and one in retail. And that spans everything from like a bit of data engineering, software engineering to data science, data analysis. So everyone at Vroomel kind of goes like full stack.
Okay,
full
cool.
data stack, which is really fun and challenging at times, but it's really good.
Right, cool. So before you were at Vroomel, can you share a bit about your background and your history? So what did you study and how did you get here?
Sure. So I graduated here from KU Leuven about, I think it's 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
With a master's in engineering in mathematical engineering, which is like a subfield that no one's ever heard of, but it's somewhere in between maths and computer science and electrical engineering.
I didn't know that actually. I thought you graduated computer science student.
No, I keep telling everyone that because otherwise I'm not accepted into the club of software engineering. But no.
This is on the record, Aline. Yeah. Okay, so mathematical engineering, all right?
Yeah, so, and I chose that like when I was 18, I decided I wanted to do mathematical engineering because my plan had been to go and study mathematics, but my high school maths teacher, she told me like, nah, maths, that's too much theory for you. You need like applications. You need to be able to do something, and so you should study engineering.
Okay.
That's what I did.
All right. And so what kind of topics did you see then? What were the main courses that you took in mathematical engineering? Is that something I would understand to begin with because I'm not a math genius?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah?
Why not? A lot of it is about systems engineering. I don't know if that's familiar to you, but it's everything concerning like controlling mechanical systems like or electrical systems. Like you have a certain impulse that's going into a system and you want to manipulate that, or you want to like have a feedback loop in some kind of like a lot of it is used in like big power plants or chemical plants where you have this system and you have to control the temperature, and then you have this control system in place to make sure that the temperature is always at the right level. So a lot of it was regarding that. Sorry.
No, sorry. So it's more than theory, right? It's more than just building a mathematical model. It's also implementing that system that creates the feedback loop.
Not in university. But
Okay.
You build the model as in you design the system to be able to do that. I never, like in university, we did actually. We had one practicum where we had to control an inverted pendulum. Do you know what that is?
I've heard of it, but I don't pretend to know what it is.
Okay, so you have the pendulum and it swings like this, but then you have the inverted pendulum and your goal is to keep it upright. So it starts from an upright position and then you have this system in place that can move in any direction.
Okay.
And your goal is to give it enough impulse so that it stays upright.
And why do we care about that?
Well, we don't. But it's not like they could put like a chemical plant in the lab. So the inverted pendulum is as close as we got.
Okay, cool.
But it was really fun to do because the thing would like the most fun part about the practicum is that you notice how things can go wrong in real life.
Yeah.
Like, so if our model to control the inverted pendulum didn't work, the thing would crash onto the table and we would have to solder everything on again because everything was broken. And
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, all right, cool. But so from that world of mathematical engineering, you ended up in data science. So what was that
Yeah,
journey?
well, so that was also kind of a part of it. You had that. You had simulations, which is really like dynamics, like for vehicle design. Like, is this optimal with regards to like wind speed and everything? But then there was also a part of it that was data science, very theoretical, and I really took an interest in that. Like, I think in my first year of my master's, because I thought it was fun. Like, it was the most practical thing you could do. You could see like it was like immediate gratification. Like, your model worked or it didn't.
Yeah.
And it's probably why I chose it.
You didn't need to solder anything. You could just
no. It was easy
rerun. Yeah. All right, cool. Yeah. And then so you graduated about 3 years ago, and then what?
Then I went on to work at a company in Antwerp, a startup as well, Sentience. I'd always have had like a soft spot for startups.
Yeah.
Everyone always told me that I wouldn't like work in a big company because I have too many opinions and stuff like that. But,
well, as far as I know, you haven't worked in a big company yet, right?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so
I would really like to at some point, but
well, they're all hiring, right? So I mean,
I know, yeah. But somehow I told myself that before I joined Frumo, like, no, I want to work in a big company, and then somehow I ended up in a small startup.
Yeah. And so Sentience, what's the story there? How did you get in touch with them, and what intrigued you about Sentience? And what is Sentience for the people who don't know? What are they doing?
So Sentience, well, I've left like 2 years ago, so I don't know exactly what they're doing today. But when I joined them, we were building like, they called it the Internet of You. It was a system that would use the sensors on your mobile phone, GPS, accelerometer, gyrometer, and then use those to build profiles of people. Like, are you outgoing, or are you like do speed when you drive, or are you a very like careful driver, stuff like that.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, okay. And how did you get? Well, how did you get to know them? Did you see them at a job fair? You knew people who worked there, and
Well, I don't remember actually. I think it was mostly I found them on LinkedIn because they were much smaller than they are now.
Okay.
And I was just scouring LinkedIn for like data scientist positions, and Sentience seemed nice. It was a startup. The people that worked there and it seemed like knowledgeable people, and I was just interested.
They are. Well, I don't know them personally, but I guess they are. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So and then what really convinced me to work there was their test. To like, they had this technical test that was pretty difficult.
Yeah.
I think I worked on it for like 3 days. And
wow.
then it was and then like 12 hours every day. It was a lot of work. But it was super fun working on it. It was an interesting challenge. I actually felt like alive.
This is for me.
This is for me. And so that's why I decided to work there, and they liked my tests, so they hired me.
Lucky. That's nice. All right. And then after Sentience, you went to Presley. Yeah, I was blanking out on it.
So the commute to Sentience was a bit long. To Antwerp every day, and then I decided to come back closer to home. Yeah. And Presley had this. So at Sentience we did a lot of fun stuff, but I noticed that I took a real interest in natural language processing. Yeah. And there wasn't much natural language processing to do at Sentience. And then so my eye fell on this project from Presley where they wanted to detect spam and limit the number of emails that you would be sent, like promotional emails, because you weren't interested and it didn't make sense to send them to you. And I was like intrigued, so I talked to the people there and they convinced me to join Presley for that project specifically.
Cool. Yeah. All right. And then in the meantime, somewhere in between, you also won a hackathon of GSK, right?
Yeah, right.
But,
keep forgetting. Yeah. No. That was not long after I left Sentience, I think. Yeah. I won it together with one of my former colleagues at Sentience, Joren.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And we'd always been talking about doing hackathons, but there never seemed to be any time for it when we were at Sentience. So we were always working.
Then, I know the feeling.
And then the hackathon was like 2 or 3 days in January, and Presley, like everyone at Presley was on vacation then, and Jordan was a freelancer, so we thought, why the hell not? Like the prize money is 25K, not bad.
For 3 days of work,
Yeah, for 3 days of work. I was like, okay, I'll have it. And so we entered, and it was a lot of fun, and we did win one of the challenges.
Cool. And what did you build?
We built like a semantic search engine. Semantic is that you don't just type in keywords. It has like some understanding of language, in the sense that you can ask a question the way you would ask a person. Like if I want you to tell me directions to the church, I'm not gonna tell you church near me as you would do to Google Maps, but you would ask like, hey sir, nice to meet you. Would you be able to tell me how to get to the nearest church from here? In our search engine, you would be able to ask like similar questions to that, and it would still come up with the right answers.
Cool.
And we built it for their like IntroWeb, the internal storage of all their documents.
But I guess that's a huge repository, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's a multinational company, and there's so many documents, so
Nice.
It's quite fun.
That was very cool. And then in the end, so you ended up at Vroomel, so despite of the bad commute, you decided to go back to Antwerp.
Yeah, I know. I didn't think I would do that, but they somehow lured me in, and then I just kept going.
All right. So Vroomel, sorry. You explained a little bit already that they do recommender systems in media, in retail. If I'm a potential client of Vroomel, why do I care about recommender systems? What's good about them? What's the value that they bring?
Difficult question.
To begin with.
I think, well, it's really not that easy to say, because the way I've seen it being done so far, I think we have a number of clients now, and every client is a little bit different. Their use case for recommender systems is also different, vastly different even. And a lot of the work we really have to do is first understanding why do you want to have a recommender system? Is it because your management gave you a budget for AI and you're now spending it on recommender systems? Then great, it's probably the best way to spend it. But still, why do you want it? What do you want to achieve from it?
Yeah, indeed.
And what I notice very often, because I also talk to clients a lot, is that because there's so little knowledge about recommender systems, that very often they have no idea. They're like, okay, so Zalando is doing it, and Amazon is doing it, and Netflix is doing it, so it has to be good, right?
Yeah.
We've got to have it.
Just follow the big boys.
Yeah, just follow the big guys. But the big guys have a vastly different use case for recommender systems than they do. And in their case, small numbers really matter. If Spotify can get a 1% increase in songs you listen to because they have a user base of 60 million users or more.
Huge.
1% is huge. It's massive.
Yeah.
But Belgian retailers and media companies, they're nowhere near numbers like that. So it's very the way they need to approach recommender systems is very different from the way that the big guys should be approaching it.
Yeah, because the impact of such a system has to be bigger. You're saying that, right? If you're only getting a 1% increase, then in the Belgian market being as small as it is, nobody really cares about.
Exactly. Very often we see that clients, they want to do a proof of concept with us. I don't know when proof of concept started being the hit especially in AI, but it's always we want to do a proof of concept with you, and that's great. But then for the proof of concept, we get this really small box on a page that nobody really reaches. I mean, if we can get an increase of 300% conversion on that small box, that's great. But added up in the big numbers of the website on the whole, it's nothing. It is 1%, but 1% for them is not the same as 1% for Spotify. So a lot of it is because they don't know it, but they know they need it. They will try with the proof of concept, but then they don't try hard enough, or they don't trust it enough. And then you
Yeah.
end up in this situation where you can't really get any benefit from it either. Well, some benefit, but
Yeah.
very little.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I see. And do you have a, like in an ideal case, what's an ideal way that the client onboards a recommender system then? Is it first trying out on a smaller site or go all in straight away, or what would you do?
I would actually go all in straight away. And I know that may sound weird, but well, wait, let me rephrase.
Yeah.
I would go in like all the way
Yeah.
from the beginning, but I would start collecting data much earlier. So I would start like 6 months before you want to go live on your homepage or something. Then I would start collecting data, because a lot of the problems you see with recommender systems in the beginning is because there's too little data. And if you can bypass that and just start off with like a good amount of data already, or if you have a backup of, you know, your historical data, then it's much easier. And there's not that much that can go wrong, actually. But the funny thing with recommender systems is that, well, the way we do it, at least, we do it based on user behavior, so nothing content based. Like, it's more like, if you like this, then you'll also like that.
Okay, and so what that means, so for people who don't know recommender systems, you're only looking at, am I similar to this other user, then I might also be interested in what he or she likes.
Yeah, well, that is one way of approaching it, but
Okay.
we do it, you can also do it like, is this item similar to this item based on like everyone who has been viewing these two items. So you can do it from the user perspective, like, is this user similar to that user? You can also do it from the item perspective. But the difference between what we do and content-based methods is that we really use like all of the data, click data from users on your website. Whereas content-based stuff, content-based algorithms use the stuff that you like type in, like if you tag your content with, so for a newspaper, that would be like if you have a tag regional or politics, news, and
then you might also be interested in other politics stories, and so here's the 5 latest. And okay.
But the problem with that is that you have like, well, you have human error or human preferences. Like, ask 2 people to like give tags to 2 items, and they'll be entirely different because one person reads politics and the other reads sports, and so, and what we do is really just whatever your users say is similar, we'll use that as well.
Yeah, I see. I guess also content based, that also means that, well, with tagging you can have some broad categories, but you can never be like, I am interested in, I don't know, politics in Southeast Asia, or I don't know, how they create boats
it's
the
limited by the effort you want to do as a human, and most of the time you don't have time to create new categories too, because like new categories keep appearing. There's always something new to be talking about.
But then the approach that you guys take, or that Frumel takes, I mean, if there's something you can't share, then don't share it. But the approach that you take is that you process a lot of clickstream data. If you work in media and retail, that also means, even for Belgian standards, that you get a tsunami of data on you before you can even begin, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the techniques, or what are some of the things you do to crunch through all that data?
Well, a lot of it is just we try to stop bad data at the source, kind of. That is kind of our approach, and we have this like pretty simple system in place to just take on as much data as we possibly can, and then just process it in a standardized format into our database, like all the time. So the specifics of it is just API, then like pops up, which is like Kafka for Google Cloud Platform, and then there's a process that's continuously running, like crunching all that data and putting it into the database, doing some final checks of validation.
And then the actual algorithm runs once it's all in the database, or how does it work? And then is it something like every night it trains, it learns new stuff, and then it updates the model, or?
No, not at all. So what we see is that something that's also very important in recommender systems is that you're always up to date, because like new content appears constantly. It doesn't
Yeah, of course.
it doesn't
Yeah.
always appear overnight. And if you're lagging behind so far, like even if it's just you updated your model at midnight and then at lunchtime they launched a new show or something, then
Yeah, you
everyone
miss
is
that.
you
Yeah.
miss those clicks, and those are very important clicks.
Of course.
So you don't want to be doing that. You want to be like always in sync. Now always in sync is still like kind of challenging, because then you have to have your model updating while it is also serving, which is kind of difficult and,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
contradictory. So what we do now is we have like we update it as fast as we can, depending on the client. That's different.
And the needs. And,
And the need it's different. And
Yeah.
then you have, like, we call that the computation stage, and then you also have the application stage, and that's just the model serving constantly. And then as soon as a new model is ready, we just swap
the
it.
models and
Yeah.
you're still live. And
Yeah.
I guess in the end, what you produce to serve your models is also some kind of API.
Yeah.
That I visit one of the websites of your clients and you go, this is user ID this, content ID that.
Yeah.
And then you run your model
Exactly.
and you return show these 5 items.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's even more complicated than that, because usually we use a couple models, of course, but you can do different things with it. So if you want to have like a box on your homepage saying like these are the trending items of the moment, you can do that by querying the same API as you would query if you want to see like, I've just finished watching this, what should I watch next?
Yeah,
Stuff
because
like that. So it's a lot of it is configurable. So
Yeah.
you just supply like, I want to have this configuration of that. Now give me my recommendations.
Okay. And so keeping that system alive from data ingest to cleaning, model training, model scoring for multiple clients, I guess that's not a trivial part of the job.
No, it's actually one of the biggest parts of the job, really, because that is like, everyone thinks it's like it's the algorithm that's gonna save us all, but it's not. It's not.
Well, it's not just the algorithm, I guess.
No. I mean, you have to have a good algorithm, of course.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is indeed about being able to answer in time, for example. We try to keep our response times under 100 milliseconds, which is really, really low. But then if you have to imagine, like, we reply with, you should recommend the user this, but at that time our client still has to go to their own data storage to like find the right image URL or see if there's a discount on this item, stuff like that. So it's not just, and usually apparently people, like, if a page takes longer than 300 milliseconds to load, they just click away. They're like, nope, too long. We're that spoiled. And
but that's reality,
No,
right?
right.
So you have 100 milliseconds to do your thing.
Exactly. And so there's probably a lot more complicated models that could perform even better than the ones we have right now. But if they can't answer in under 100 milliseconds, I'm sorry, but we're never going to use them.
And what are some of the let's say the technologies or the techniques that you use to achieve that? Something in particular that you say, well, it was too slow in the past, but now we do this and that helped us a lot, or?
No, not exactly. I think everything, like whatever we build, we just always keep performance in mind. Like it's not something, we do a lot of caching, of course, never on the actual recommendations, but everything else we try to cache, like what did you watch in the past, or who, like the user ID, stuff like that, or extra information on the items, stuff like that. Everything we try to cache. And yeah, I think it's part of the way we design things. So there's nothing specific that I can point out that we do, but with every decision we make about the platform, we always think about performance first.
Okay.
At some point so we have a lot of systems interacting with each other to be able to get that recommendation for you. And initially they would communicate over just JSON messages.
Yeah.
But we use typed languages, so every time that JSON had to be serialized and deserialized and everything, and like
it's expensive.
It was super expensive, and that was like a clear bottleneck for us. And so we replaced that with just Apache Thrift.
It's a Thrift communication.
Yeah, and now it's so much faster.
Yeah.
And we're looking, because we're on Google Cloud Platform, we're now looking at using gRPC instead.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I say yes, but I've never worked with it, so
No?
I know that it exists. That's it.
Well, I haven't worked with it either, but see, that's a lot of it is like experimenting. If we see that we're starting to become slow or something is wrong, we have to solve that problem like in the moment, and that's really fun.
Are there other things on Google Cloud Platform where you say, we're really happy with this service, or this is something that I would use again in the next project?
Well, PubSub is really nice.
Yeah.
I used to be like, I'm a big fan of everything Apache, so Apache Kafka was like, Apache Kafka. But PubSub is like, it doesn't guarantee in-order delivery, but like in all other aspects, it's quite nice, because your Kafka, you have to manage it and you have to make sure that everything is, like even, I think if you want to have multiple consumers, you have to partition it right and make sure that everything is good. With PubSub, it's just like, here's your topic, here's your subscription, consume. Want to have more than one consumer? Okay, we'll make sure there are no duplicates in the stream. It's really, really easy to use.
Yeah. And then the drawback that you mentioned, because I saw that at some of our clients as well, that you can't guarantee ordering. Yeah. Has it bit you? Has it been an issue, or have you been able to work around it?
Well, for most things it's not an issue, but for one thing it is, and that it is when clients send us updates of items coming in. So we try to be always up to date. So also new items are coming in, and we want to make sure we process them as fast as we can. Yeah. And then if they send an update twice and they're swapped.
Then you get the previous update.
Yeah, then you really get. So we can't use it for that. Well, we're kind of trying, because Google now also recommends a few ways of like working around the problem. Okay. So I'm looking into using that. But yeah, it hasn't really been that much of an issue. I thought it'd be a much bigger issue than it is.
Yeah, and indeed the alternative, we had the exact same problem with another client. The alternative is running your own Kafka. Well, as an engineer, that's a lot of fun. Yeah. But you spend a lot of time on building and maintaining that.
Yeah, exactly.
Thing.
Like, I like it. I like doing all those things, but sometimes it's just not practical.
Yeah. Dear boss, can you give me 3 months so I can configure the hell out of this thing? Thank you very much. It's like,
I'm really happy with all of the managed services, really. Yeah. Like, they launched Cloud SQL a couple months ago. Okay. Before that, we had to have our own managed Postgres database, and then like stuff starts to happen like, it's becoming too much traffic for just this one database. We need a read replica or something to be able to work off. And then fuck, this is going to take us a lot of time. With Cloud SQL, it's just like, I need a replica.
Done. Yeah. And that's just Postgres as a service in Cloud SQL. Yeah, okay.
You can
like
also
the other cloud
MySQL
providers.
It's just the same as like, what's the name again? It's not Aurora.
RDS, Relational Database Service in Amazon.
So I'm mostly really happy with all of the managed services, and we're trying to use more of them.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I have the same philosophy that as an engineer, I like to tinker with stuff. Yeah. But, well, for your clients, they expect you to deliver business value, right? With the least amount of effort. So
exactly.
The path of least resistance goes definitely through which kind of managed services can I use and how can I use them best. And only then, if there's not a managed service that can do what I needed to do, only then I will look like, should I build it myself?
I always try to have the opinion of like, if it's not our core business, we shouldn't build it ourselves. Yeah. And I think like for you guys, you're data engineering as a service basically. Yeah. So it makes sense for you to start building stuff, but we're really an algorithms company. We're trying to build recommender systems for you. It's not our job to like.
No, indeed, but that's something I've noticed through a lot of companies, also clients of ours, that they have a hard time distinguishing between what's your core business, what should you invest all your engineering time in, and what should you buy off the shelf.
Yeah.
Like, and there can be simple things. Like I had discussion. Like some companies I meet, they really insist on running their own Git server. So why would you do that? Yeah, just go to github.com, pay what is it, $10 per user per month. That's a solved problem, right? Or no, we need Jira and Confluence on premise. Really, you want to run your own Jira server? I mean, let Atlassian worry about Jira, right? And those are the obvious cases, right? But then there's also a lot of non-obvious cases like if we go for I need a real-time PubSub thing, do I need it managed, or do I want to build my own or deploy my own Kafka, or do I take Kafka as a service? Very often, a lot of our clients go way too far. No, we'll set it all up ourselves, then we have full control.
Yeah.
It's not really true, right? It's and very often you don't want full control. Even me as an engineer, I want Amazon or Google or Microsoft. I want somebody else to worry about a lot of the things, right?
I always try to think like, what is the best use of my time?
Yeah.
And then often I find myself doing things that I think like, why am I even doing this? Like this should not be what I'm doing right now. There's so much more important stuff to do.
Indeed.
So I always find myself kind of on the side of like buying it off the shelf. If it is possible, of course not. If it costs like,
I know.
but a lot of these things are available off the shelf and actually pretty good. And relinquishing some control is not that bad because you don't have time to have full control. Like you'll never, sure, you can spend like 3 weeks tuning your own database to be perfectly optimal and solve everything, but then you've lost those 3 weeks, and in 2 weeks your situation changes and you can start over again.
Yeah, so you want also, the view I always take is like, will this differentiate you from your competition, right? You will be differentiated, I guess, and tell me if I'm wrong, you will be differentiated by offering a premier recommender system which has insane performance. So you mentioned performance is super key. That yes, you won't differentiate from competition by using your own. Look how much time I spent on managing this database. Right? Nobody cares, right?
Our client really doesn't care if we log our error messages in the most beautiful way possible. They're just like, I want to know if something is wrong, period.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
All right. Cool. So maybe let's dive into the recommender systems a bit. I know a little bit about recommender systems, and you just said so there's item-based and content-based.
Well, no, we call it collaborative filtering usually. So that's all of the techniques that use like clickstream data. And
collaborative filtering means this user is similar to this user and this item is similar to that item. That's collaborative filtering. Yeah. And then content-based, that's just called content-based.
That's just, it's a class of methods that are called content-based, which is just like based on what we have. It can also be on the user, like based on what we have on this user. Like if on my Facebook profile, I clicked like I like music and Italian food, and you clicked music, Italian food, and Rome, it will recommend me Rome because you also click that.
But it's a manual rules engine that you configure.
So content based is always like, what does the user or the item or whoever created the content supply to you? And collaborative filtering does not use any of that off the shelf, but it will just be like what has been clicked together or purchased together with.
Okay.
So that's the idea.
All right. And what
there's,
in your
there's other methods, by the way, that I'm kind of ignoring right now, but if we get into that, it's going to take way too long. So.
Okay, but these are the two main ones.
Those are biggest in industry at least.
Okay. And what would you say makes a good collaborative filtering algorithm, or what distinguishes a good one from a bad one?
Let me think on that. I think as far as algorithms go, it really depends on what you want to get from it. But what I've learned is even more important is to have like human intervention possible with collaborative filtering algorithms as well. So what you will see is that we have this concept of the long tail in recommendations. So you have like a bunch of items that everyone views or everyone buys, and then like shady stuff that no one buys, like niche products. And if you have like only a couple of clicks on those, you might end up with like really weird relationships, like some place to like put a bunny that suddenly relates to like beer or something. Because just like one person also bought that thing and then also bought beer.
But a bunny for his son and then bought some beer for himself, maybe.
But I mean,
I can relate.
Yeah, but you don't want to be recommended that thing for your bunny when you're buying beer. So what I think is important is that you're able to also like kind of constrain what you can get, just to make sure that to a human it makes sense. Because with collaborative filtering, you're relying on your data very much, and that is good because your data knows more than you. But your end user doesn't know that. So they just see like recommended for you, and then there's that thing for that bunny, and you're like, fuck, I'm buying beer, leave me alone. I mean,
you know what I also find annoying about some recommender systems, and I don't know if they do that on purpose or not, but then I go to one news site and I say, you're reading this item, these are the top 5 other items, but then like 4 of the 5 other items you need like a paid subscription. And it's like, but I'm not a paid subscriber here, so are you doing that intentionally to lure me in, or is it?
They are probably doing that intentionally. I mean, the recommender is there to provide business value to them, so the idea is to keep you on the website long enough and then give you something that you just can't access with your current subscription, so you'll have to upgrade.
It's super annoying, like
I know. It annoys me too, but I mean that has little to do with the recommender. And more
business
with
model.
the business model.
I see. Can you also make a recommender system so that when I already clicked an article, that you don't recommend it anymore, like that you take into account my history?
So that's actually a really interesting challenge, because in some cases you don't want to revisit the same things you already visited, but then in some cases you do. Like, if you also have like random click behavior, you know, like you click something accidentally and you want to find it again, but then it disappears. If we would be integrated on the homepage and you're recommended something once and you click on it accidentally and it's not there again the next time, then that is a bad experience.
That's annoying.
So it's a very difficult problem. It's one we're tackling right now, which is like when should we recommend things, and should we like keep recommending them after you've already viewed them? In what circumstances should we do that? Is it dependent on you as a user? Like, is Chris someone who clicks random items and then wants to visit them again? Or is he the kind of person that is very determined and then never like goes to that page again? Or you can look at it from the item perspective, like, is this an item you visit a couple of times before you buy it, or you just like to see it again? Or is it not? And so that's one of the things we're doing right now. There's another one which is really interesting that people kind of never think about, which is, how often do you recommend something? It's like the same with cold calling. Like, you might not pick up the first time and not the second time, but the third time with a cold call or a cold email, you'll pick up the phone and you'll talk to the person. It's kind of the same with recommendations. Like, I can recommend you something and you won't click it, but not because you're not interested, just because you don't have the time right now, or it's inconvenient and stuff like that. So to give you an optimal recommendation, I should actually try again.
Of course.
And so that's really interesting, because you don't want to like try too often if you just keep repeating there, like, saw that already, thank you, bye. And so
that makes sense. Something, can you also do things like, if I'm I don't know, if I run my own e-commerce website and I come to you like, I need a recommender system, and I know like this category of items I really make huge profit, and this is like low profit margin, which all retailers work like that, I guess. Can you influence the algorithm in such a way that you see more of these high profit margin products in the system?
Sure, you can, but the thing we always try to do is we try to A/B test things.
Okay.
So because very often there's this, very, very many little things also make one big one.
And that's true.
So you kind of have to find an optimal balance between like, should we recommend this because it has a higher value to us, or should we recommend it because it has a higher value to you? And those are two valid inputs to the problem. So you just kind of have to weigh them and find the optimal combination of the both to be able to get a good recommender system, because the recommender system is not just there for the user, it's also there for you to create business value. It's the same with the newspaper with the paid articles. Like, if you'd let the recommender do its thing, it's probably optimized for like clicks, like get as many clicks as possible. Well, that's one strategy, but that's like the base strategy.
Indeed.
But that's not going to make you much money as a company.
No,
and
indeed,
so
it makes sense.
It's kind of the same. The paid article, or like higher monetary value of the product to you as a company.
Although if you take it to the other extreme, I guess the risk is that it starts to become like spam. Like this is the 10th time you try to sell me these pencils. Like I don't need these pencils. Go away.
But that is kind of, I think, how promotional emails work right now. So right now we're in the we're in that place where like retailers or media companies are just pushing the content on you that has the highest monetary value to you, to them, not to you,
to
but
them,
to them, and they'll tell you like it's interesting for you and chosen specifically and la di da di da, but it's not. I mean, they're just trying to push the stuff towards you.
Yeah, that happens.
Of course. I mean, do you open a promotional email sometimes?
Not a lot, but yeah.
Well, that's how I would do it probably. So
I
don't really blame them.
Yeah.
But, and that's probably what you do there. And then on the other hand, you have the recommender system, which will just be like, whatever the user wants, we'll give it to them. Yeah. Which is also not optimal. So
no, indeed.
You have to be somewhere in between. But then finding what that sweet spot is for your company or your service or whatever, that's the hard part. That's where we spend a lot of our time.
And then maybe one let's say pet peeve I have with recommendation algorithms, probably happened to you as well when you go to Amazon and you buy something. Like I buy whiteboard markers, I check out, I pay for them, and then immediately you see a recommendation of like 10 other sets of whiteboard markers. Like
after you've bought them? Yeah. That's weird.
Have you never seen that?
No, but I thought they did it before. Like when you want to check out, if you scroll down, you have like similar items to this or bought together with this.
Then as well, but even and it happened a lot. Or well, I just bought a printer. You might also be interested in these 10 printers. No, I just bought a printer. I don't know. They think like
it's kind of like retargeting. Like they weren't smart enough to figure out that you actually bought the product.
Yeah, and for some products you might need more. Yeah. But for some, like a printer, you buy once and then.
Yeah, we try to make a distinction between consumption and just views. Like you can view a whiteboard marker, not buy it, and that is probably a signal that you didn't find what you were looking for. So we should target you with more whiteboard markers.
Alternatives.
Alternatives. Have you considered this? This one's cheaper, whatever works for that user. But then there's consumption, and a consumption is something that is more rare. It's not that it like your whiteboard markers will run out at some point. You'll need new whiteboard markers, but you don't need them now because you just bought them. So that is also one thing, like we try to distinguish consumption from just a view, and we always like subtract the consumption from the view to make sure that you're not like recommended that thing again. Yeah. But it's also not good to say like you'll never be recommended whiteboard markers again, because then you also lose an opportunity.
Yeah, indeed. And I guess the trick is to try to understand like how frequently in general do people need whiteboard markers. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Did you also want to talk about like the impact of recommender systems and how you see that on society and things like that?
Yeah. Sure. So I kind of like what I do right now, because it's like a weird balance between like some people say like, oh, you're targeting me so that I will consume more, which is totally true. But then on the other hand, people want to consume, and I'm much happier with like a personalized email that actually gets me than being like sent like an email every day while I only buy like whatever, like shoes. I only buy them every 3 months, but I receive an email. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry, only every 2 years, you know?
No, I was just kidding. Yeah.
No, but so a lot of the promotional emails right now and everything is like, it comes way too often, and I find myself, even though I ignore most of them, like still spending way too much time looking through them and seeing if there may be something. And so I'd be much happier if stuff was a little more personalized so I could find what I needed sooner.
Yeah. No, for email I've completely given up. Like all my promo emails, I don't care. I never read them. I never but it does work. I mean, recommender systems for me work very well on websites. What I like about recommender systems is that I let's say whiteboard markers. I know I need a whiteboard marker, so I just find the first one that I Google, I click, but then you also see that below, like these are the 10 other options.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, my maybe sometimes it's the stress of too many choices that I also don't like. But at least you know, like, okay, it's this option, but these are twice as expensive, but they have all of these properties, whatever.
Yeah.
It feels like it's guiding me towards the right purchase. Just like the sales guy in a normal shop, like, oh, you're looking for a TV, what kind of TV? And then you go further and further and further until I have the idea. Maybe it's just me convincing myself of that fact, but I have the idea that after a relatively quick search, I go to the right spot for me.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
the idea. I think time is like, it's so scarce at the moment that you need to make the best possible use of it.
Yeah.
And still, I find myself on a lot of websites that are not personalized, like scrolling through like 5,000 t-shirts before I finally find one. Well, actually, I see my boyfriend doing that a lot. Like, he's very picky about what he likes. And then he's on Zalando and he's just scrolling endlessly. And then after an hour, he gets so tired of it and he just gives up.
Yeah, of course.
And I understand, because that's a really frustrating experience. And that's kind of what I'm trying to like help.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I would definitely pay for a service that guides me through my shopping experience. Right? You do that for technology, but even I'm not a big clothes shopper, to be honest. I don't know if you can tell, but anyway. but I used to have this personalized service from, I forgot the name of the company, but they would send me...
the one that would send you like a box of...
Indeed.
I don't remember the name.
There were a few of those, but anyway, I got a box every month, and then I get to choose which clothes I kept and which one I didn't want. And then over time, because they get to know my taste, and they also... I had the feeling that they were thinking with me, like, who's this person, and blah, and they recommend new stuff, and then that worked.
It's kind of like having the ideal recommender system would be like a personal assistant, a personal shopper, or like a shopkeeper of like a boutique store where you just come in and you feel like they're taking care of you.
Absolutely.
That would be the optimal. I think right now people are still thinking of recommender systems too much as something that will intrude on their privacy and everything. And I get it maybe, but like the way we handle data, it's not like I don't know who's on the other end of the recommendation. I have no idea. I never
and you don't care either,
and
right?
I don't care either, right? That's not my point. So that's really my goal, like to make it feel like it's kind of like your personal assistant, like it's a service to you and not the other way around. So
it's also I guess in we've been working for a few clients in public transport, and there we try to create the same effect where you want a personalized recommendation on what's your mode of transportation you're going to take now. You're going to take this bus, where are you going to take the bus, and where do you want to go now, without it's the exact same story. Like, I don't care about you as an individual. I don't want to know where you're going. I just want to help you get on the right mode of transportation, right?
Exactly.
And me also, as on the other side of that equation, if me as a customer, I value GDPR a lot. I think it's a big important thing that happened. So I also want to adjust my preferences, like who gets my data and who doesn't. And for me, everybody has their own rule, right? But for me, the rule is very simple. If you give me a better service, if I can get value from you looking at my data, then go ahead, right? If it's just to crunch my data and sell it to some third party so I can get some spam about an insurance 3 months from now, I don't care. I don't want you to have my data. But if you can give me a better experience, do it. Why not?
I think that right now, so a lot of personalization is already being done in advertising. And I think that if like retailers and media companies start adopting recommender systems more, they might need less of that. Because right now they're spending a whole lot of their money in advertising and like targeting people with their products, well, letting others target people with their products actually. And they pay a lot of money for that, and it doesn't, like, it's not, the conversion is not that great. Whereas if they could just make sure that the clients wants to come to their website because it's just so easy to get what they want from there.
Then you're a trusted partner.
You're kind of, I want the, like, the same way you have those trusted brands right now, like you can go to Dorfs and find your perfect shoe or something. I want to have that effect online as well, where there's, because right now it's just like a price war waging. Like it's the only thing you do online is you see an advertisement and then you see like, and you can buy it here and there for like that amount of money. Like if we can take a little bit of money away from the people doing that and just make sure that you don't have to go through Google to find what you need, but you can just go to the website the same way you would go to the store and just know that you'll find what you need, I think that would just be great.
Well, for me, but it's very personal. For me, Coolblue does that for me. Like when I need technology, I go to Coolblue first.
See?
And I don't do price comparison. And maybe like some people will find that stupid, but to me, Coolblue is a trusted partner. I have the feeling that they guide me through what I need, and then
exactly, yeah.
So and actually, a lot of people also, I don't know what your view on that is, but if you just go normal supermarket shopping, a lot of people have their, at least I do, have their favorite supermarket brand. And they do like 90% of the shopping in their supermarket, right? Because you're not gonna, well, I know some people do, but most people I know, they just go, I need all of this, I need all of that from one store. I don't care if the cucumbers are like 10 cents off here and the Coke is 50 cents off there. I just go to the supermarket, fill my...
And that's not what happens online. And that, I think that's part of the reason there's just so much competition on prices, because it's like nobody differentiates in any other way than just the prices.
That's a battle you can never win, right?
And it is indeed a battle you can never win, and especially not if you're one of the smaller ones. So that's why I think that personalization can be actually more meaningful to like smaller retailers than it is to the bigger ones, just because like they cannot win that price war. They should just stop trying and focus on like delivering online what they do in their stores, which is being a trusted partner.
Yeah. Do you also think then that so for the smaller retailers that they should have a niche, like focus on this is the one thing that you really know a lot about and that's what you should sell? Or
I think I don't really feel comfortable saying that, because I think it really depends on, like, I always try to start from a position where I'm like, okay, you're the experts on your company, I'm the expert on recommender systems. You tell me what your company does and what you do best, and I'll make sure you get a recommender system that works to deliver that value. So I don't know, should they focus on a niche? It depends what you define as a niche.
Yeah, well, maybe, for instance, I run a web shop only for earrings.
Is a possibility, yeah.
Yeah, but you're not opinionated about that. You're
not really, no.
Yeah. Okay.
I think, well, from my personal perspective, I think that you need a certain amount of volume to be able to do anything. And I do like it, like, same as with the supermarket. Why do you go to the supermarket and you do not go to, like, your local tomato farmer and then to your local, like, spinach farmer? You want to find everything you need together, like, all at once. And that's also something that recommenders can really help you with. Sure, they can recommend other earrings, but they can also, like, recommend the necklace to go with that earring. And as soon as you have that set, it can recommend you like a dress to go with.
Indeed.
So if you don't have like at least a little bit of volume, then I'm not sure if it really...
No, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Okay. But then you also said that when there's a new client onboarding, you first go to the client to understand what do you specialize in or what you're really good at. So does that mean that you always tailor the recommender system to the client? It's never an off-the-shelf product where you click next.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Because I don't really believe that works, and it's also really not the philosophy of like Frumel as a company. Okay. I really think that depending on one, what you're trying to get from the recommender system, and two, who you are as a company, you should really approach it differently. Because, for example, one client may be like very tech savvy and very well known for that, so they can get away with having like their recommender run wild on the website as long as they communicate clearly about it.
Yeah.
But then you have another company that's like trying to target like maybe an older audience, much more conservative. there you need to be really careful with what you recommend and like kind of explain why you're recommending that, just to make sure that your audience does not feel like scared away by what you're doing. So
okay, cool.
And very often there's many ways to use a recommender system. Like depending on different pages, Amazon will show you like similar items, or pardon me, just recommended for you, or complimentary stuff like that. So.
Oh, people also bought, and that's like accessories and stuff like that. That's also what I find very useful sometimes.
Yeah, see, but so there's also different types of people. Like for you and me, people also bought will kind of satisfy that need we have for making sure that we're buying the right product. Whereas just like someone that says similar and then just shows like all of the different products with different prices might kind of satisfy someone who's more like, I want to make sure I get the cheapest one. So everyone's a little different, so every recommendation is a little different, and depending on the brand, you should also approach it differently.
Cool. All right. So maybe one last thing about your work at Frumel is that you're also doing a PhD at Frumel. Yeah. So on top of it all, can you explain in like layman's terms what's your research area and what you're focusing on?
So that's kind of how they lured me in at Frumel, because I was freelancing before that, and I came in to do one small freelance project for them, which was personalizing the search engine on the VTM website, so a big media brand in Belgium. And it was just really, really fun to work on that, because especially in like searching for products or videos or stuff like that, there's a lot to be done with like personalizing your results. If you're like browsing on Google and you search for something, then if I type in Napoleon and you type in Napoleon, we'll both be satisfied if we see Wikipedia on top, probably, because we're trying to satisfy an information need. But when you're trying to buy something or find something to watch that night on Netflix, there's a lot more parameters to play with.
Netflix in particular, I think the search on Netflix is not that good, right?
No, so it's not personalized right now. No, it's not. It's just simple text matching. And so you see really weird stuff happening there. Like what we noticed is if you just search for family on VTM, if depending on how often the word is repeated in the description, it will like pop up higher, even if it's like a video that was posted 5 years ago and nobody has watched it since.
So that's completely meaningless, right? Nobody cares about that.
So there's a lot of value there to be had from personalization, and that's kind of what the PhD is about. So we did it for VTM, and I mean it works fine. Works really well. But we noticed that there's so much like unsolved problems there. There's so much yet to be discovered, and that's the subject of the PhD.
All right, cool.
So it's combining the knowledge that they have at Frumel, because it was founded by a professor, Bart Goethals, and his PhD student, Koen Verstrepen. They have a lot of knowledge on recommender systems. I dabble in search, and then we're trying to bring all of that together.
Dabble in search, because that's also what you did at the hackathon of GSK, right? So it all comes together. Didn't know that Koen was the student of...
originally, so they started a spin-off together.
All right, nice. All right, cool. So maybe looking back on, even though you've only been in the game for 3 years, I think you've done a lot of different things already. You also have a very cool track record, so congratulations about that. What are the things, this is a cliche question, but do you have some lessons learned looking back at, if I only knew this 2 years ago, or if I only knew this at the start of my study, what are the things that you look different at today than a couple of years ago?
I think mostly I learned that everything takes time.
That's a very Zen Buddhist thing to say.
I'm still learning, but no, it's like I was very impatient when I started working. I thought things would like come to me, like I would learn and learn and learn and keep on learning, and then soon I would get there, and then I would just continue learning. And everything takes a little bit of time. You can't expect things to be better, like poof, just like that. And so I think that's like my biggest lesson learned. And the second thing is that simple things work. That's the most important one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there's a lot of focus right now, especially in data science, on like having the coolest deep learning algorithm or whatever. And sure, that's great, but it's kind of like, you know, an engineer playing with his own managed Kafka. It's great, but the business value is zero. Yeah. I feel the same way about a lot of deep learning being used. I see apps popping up that are like, yeah, we built this, it's a deep learning algorithm, and it's video streaming, and then you point it at something and it will tell you what type of bottle of water this is. And I'm like, great.
You can also look at the bottle.
Yeah, you can also just look at the bottle. It's like, it would be like if one of the supermarkets would come up with an app that if you like take a picture of something, it will automatically detect what it is and put it in your basket. I would spend a lot more time taking pictures of stuff I wanted to buy than me just like putting in my basket for next week. So, and that is just like, it's just a bunch of engineers or a bunch of data scientists that are like having a fun time on the playground. But I don't think a lot of business value is created that way.
But it's also I don't know how you look at that, but sometimes it's also the other way around. I heard a statistic the other day that 40% of AI startups, they don't actually do AI.
No, exactly.
So it's just marketeers hyping, you do a sum and a maximum, that's AI.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's an aggregate.
It's like both things. Like on the one hand, you have the data scientists that are like being totally hyped up with deep learning and doing the coolest stuff. And then they go and work for companies where the clients really don't need more than just a mean or a standard deviation from the mean. And
there's nothing wrong with that, right?
Sure, there's nothing wrong with it, but there's just like...
Yeah, there's a gap between the two.
There's
expectation gap.
Yeah. And there's also that same expectation gap with the customer, because like the scientist wants to be doing cool stuff. He's actually just doing very, very simple statistics. But the marketeer that talks to the client will then say they're doing the most awesome AI.
There's this other quote that says, if it runs in Python, it's data science. If it runs on PowerPoint, it's AI.
Yeah, well, it is kind of true. And I don't like using the term myself. If you will ask me, does Frumel do AI? I know I'm supposed to say yes because it's in the pitch. But I would not say yes, because AI for me is a meaningless word.
Yeah.
What we do is we bring value with data. Yeah. That's the end of it.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Although you could also argue that bringing value with data, everybody says they do it. Like the large consultancies bring value with data. I mean, your accountant brings value with data. I mean, you recommend.
Okay, true.
It's a bit. We're struggling with the same. To be clear, we struggle a lot with. Chris, can you tell me in one sentence what DataMind does? We create value from data. No. That's not
okay, true. But then what is the right way to describe it? I don't know.
It's another topic, I guess.
As long as I don't have to say AI, it's fine.
Yeah. All right, cool. And then maybe let's wrap up with, if you look forward, so imagine the world 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. What do you think the trends that you see today that will even explode, will keep on growing, and what are the things that you see going away? How do you see the future of, recommended systems, I guess? Yeah.
I really don't know. I know that right now, I think recommender systems are given a chance mostly because of that AI innovation budget that the big companies have. And I really hope that we're not heading into another AI winter, as they call it, where the expectations didn't match with the actual outcomes, and people will stop believing in it because, like I said, simple things really work, and there's a lot of value to be created by using simple things. Yeah. But if you ask me where I want to be going, like in 5 years, I really hope that instead of like waging price wars and stuff like that, a lot of companies will start like focusing on their true values and their core business again, and then use technology, not just recommender systems, but any kind of technology to support them in that goal. That would be like
No, it's very
my
cool.
perfect future
Very
in
cool.
5 years.
And indeed, and as you said, have things like recommender systems be more like personal assistants to you,
Yeah.
right? That guide you through your
Yeah, exactly.
journey. Yeah. Well, it was very interesting. Thanks very much to take the time, make
You're
time available
welcome.
for us, and then good luck with the rest of your journey.
Thank you, Kirst.
Thank you.
Bye.